Thanks very much. The latest figures show that there are 12,441 people in emergency accommodation, including an incredible 3,699 children. That is more people than live in Rush, Portmarnock or Skerries in the Minister's own constituency. Yet when these figures came out, the Minister effectively said to the media that they vindicated the decision to end the eviction ban, when after the eviction ban has ended, the figures have risen month after month after month and are likely to continue to do so as a consequence of that decision.
But I might get an opportunity to come back on that in supplementaries. But look, the residential tenancies deferment of termination dates was a time-limited intervention, and it provided a stay on eviction notices up to the 31st of March and deferred tenancy terminations running to the 18th of June. So it was on a phased basis. The purpose of it was to protect renters during that specific period, provide additional protection, and to allow local authorities the time to bring forward further emergency accommodation into operation, which we did. Also to provide the space to provide more permanent accommodation. 6,000 social homes completed in Q4 of last year. The staggering of the ending of the ban, coupled with new measures aimed at preventing homelessness, appears to have been effective in the term of preventing any drastic increase in entries into homelessness. And my department have been closely monitoring the rate of new entries into homelessness since the scheduling end of the ban, and the rate of increase remains lower than the period immediately prior to its introduction. So that's important to note as well, that for instance in March 2023, when the moratorium was still fully in effect, there was an increase of 246 individuals in emergency accommodation. No consolation whatsoever to them, Deputy, and I'm not playing with figures here, but the reality of it is the June increase was 182. So you had actually a larger increase during the moratorium in the last month than we've seen this month. And there's a reason for that. We've been able to exit more people, and I'll cover that in a bit more detail in supplementaries, into permanent social homes from emergency accommodation because we're building more social homes as well. And we had to be careful, I mentioned this in response to a question earlier on, that any further intervention in the private rental sector would just have an effect for more and more properties to be lost in that sector, thereby making the situation worse. And I think most people understand that.
Doctor?
I mean, I think that's really cold comfort to the 12,441 people who are homeless now. The Minister makes the point, and it's true, that the staggered nature of the ending of the eviction ban has an impact, and it means that you don't have the tsunami in one fell swoop. That's true. But the opposition, we were never saying that it was going to come in one fell swoop. I mean, I'm not an expert in tsunamis, but I get the impression that they build and build and build, and then a qualitative point is reached, and then they really overwhelm people. And that's certainly what I'm experiencing in terms of the people who are coming in to my constituency clinics, who have eviction notices coming up in the coming 6 months, 9 months. You know, over almost 5,000 eviction notices were issued in the first quarter of this year. And this thing is going to get worse and worse and worse. And the decision to end the eviction ban is going to be a direct cause of this. The other thing I'd say is that you're ignoring the increase, or the very likely increase, in hidden homelessness that also exists in terms of increased numbers of people, cars, couch surfing, and so on.
Deputy, I'm not ignoring anything, and I want to assure you that. I think the other measures that we brought in, which I didn't get to respond to, the purchase with tenants in situ, which we rolled out and extended from January this year as a mitigation measure. I set a target of a minimum of 1,500 homes. That's converting HAP and RAS tenancies into permanent social homes. And we'll exceed that quite substantially this year, and I want to continue that into next year. That's a really good way of securing tenancies and bringing additional homes into social housing use. To remind you, Deputy, you didn't just look for the extension of the moratorium, you wanted a permanent extension of it, effectively. And I think you've got to be honest with people that what would that do to the private rented sector in relation to capacity and stock? Would it not see a further flight of homes being sold? And it would, and you know that, because these are complex issues. We need a private rental sector, whether you like it or not. There indeed is.
You do not need a private rental sector.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'll explain.
Well, this is not an exchange of views. This is a little plan.
Deputy, we have 60,000 households being supported through HAP tenancies right now. in the private rental sector. And you've just said to the House, we don't need a private rental sector, which is kind of an astonishing remark. The reality of it is, we're building more social houses now than we've done since 1975. We'll do more still, and we'll continue to do that. And in supplementary, I'll come back on the exits from homelessness as well.
Doctor.
We do not need a private rental sector. It's not true. We need homes for people to live in and affordable rents for them. The landlords you talk about exiting the market, they cannot bring the homes with them. They don't strap the apartments to their back, get on a boat and leave, put them on the properties remain here. They cannot remove them. So we simply need the state to step in every circumstance where that happens and say, we're going to buy it, we're going to convert you into being a tenant of the state, give people security of tenure and so on. It would be a much better solution for people as opposed to, sorry?
No criteria?
No criteria. Everybody should be entitled to be a tenant of the state. Absolutely. Everybody should be entitled to a differential rent. The entire problem, the central problem of the whole government strategy is that you're obsessed about incentivising the private sector and so on. Also, to pose a question to you, how many is too many? And what is the target for when you're going to have zero? I mean, your predecessors had targets for ending homelessness. Joan Burton was 2016, Simon Coveney was July 2016 as well, I think, or 2017 possibly. What's your target for when there'll be no people in emergency accommodation?
Look, there are many reasons why people enter into emergency accommodation, and Deputy will know that we publish, every single month we publish a report on it, and you'll have people because of notice to quit, because of relationship breakup, new entries to the state, many different reasons why that is the case. And it's important that people know that anyone who does find themselves homeless will be supported by the state in emergency accommodation. We actually exited, in the full course of last year, 5,478 exits from homelessness were achieved last year. Even in Q1 this year, we've seen a 15% increase in the exits from homelessness, exiting people into permanent housing solutions, which is really, really important. And whether the Deputy likes it or not, there's a reality right now, is that we're building up our public housing stock, which we're doing. We have affordable housing for the first time in a generation, cost rental for the first time ever. But yes, we do have a private rental market. It's not about supporting landlords, it's supporting the reality of the situation that there is a private rental market. So PBP are basically saying, well, we don't need it, so you just end it immediately. we're actually... No, come on, Paul. Come on, Paul.
One thing,
that's not what we're saying.
You're actually living in fantasy land, okay? So, look, it is a very serious situation, homelessness, so I don't want to belittle it in any way. And we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we can drive those numbers down and exit people into permanent housing solutions.